Hello my Lovebugs, I hope you guys are all well. My name is Tana, and pretty much I just wanted to chat a bit about mental health and some of the things that I've been doing to help with my anxiety and just mental peace. I know that we are all triggered by different things, and trying to find a way in which we can create a mental space that is positive and isn't filled with anxiety or strained thoughts is sometimes a little bit difficult. Well, yeah, I found it a bit difficult, so I've just found ways that help me create an environment that would lead to less anxiety using coping mechanisms or methods rather. Ultimately, everyone's journey of healing and peace is very different, and I am in no way any sort of psychologist or anything. I'm just sharing what's been helping me in hopes that it could help someone else as well out there. And everyone's journey is obviously different, and I don't think I'm at the end of my journey. I'm still going through it, so there's definitely still lots more for me to learn and lots more for me to go through. But I think that right now I'm in a space that I can say helps me with coping mechanisms. I don't think that I've finally gotten to the point where I'm like at top of the hill, but there's little things that I do that help at least cover the anxiety. But I think that maybe my next steps are, how do I relieve it or get rid of it? But that's where I'm at right now. So I thought I'd just share some of the stuff that I do to cover the anxiety. Firstly, I believe in curating your spaces. The environment that you're in obviously has an effect on how you're feeling, and I found that my room, however I decorate it and stuff, really helps with how well I deal. When my environment is curated in the way that I like or I appreciate, it helps calm me down and give me peace. And yes, I may have gone for a more like zen vibe from an overall room, but whatever you're into, maybe that's what you need to surround yourself with. Surrounding yourself with things that make you happy, materialistic or what, sometimes give you a little bit of extra happiness that you need in the day when you don't always have what you would deem generally a happy day. Creating that environment that allows you to feel peaceful and a little less anxious. Next up is something that is a little for me, and that's exercising or moving your body. So I personally don't really enjoy exercising that much. I found, like, especially now that we're home and we're quarantined, exercising from home isn't the most motivating thing, and I don't tend to enjoy it. But I found that I really do enjoy yoga, which at least allows me to move my body and stretch my bones and focus on my breathing and creating that mindfulness. I find that I'm not a very mindful person, but yoga forces me to be. Also allowing you to feel every inch of your body and all the beautiful things that your body can achieve by being aware of every inch of it. So I found that Pilates, swimming, all these types of things that help your physical being. I find that being more mindful of my physical being helps me feel more centered and present, and not so much in my head. Next up for me is performative acts, where it's things that symbolize peace for me. So I do them when feeling anxious, so that I know that I'm stepping into a peaceful moment. So for instance, I will light my candles, or I will light incense sticks, or having a cup of tea, or a few other not so kosher things. These things are things that I do to tell myself that I'm now stepping into a peaceful state. Things that I do that don't necessarily ultimately contribute to the healing, and that I'm not actively doing work on my mind. But there are performative acts that help produce peace and just lessen the anxiety, and also communicate to my brain that I'm allowing myself to feel calm, I'm allowing myself to feel this peace, and that the environment I've set is specifically for that. So sometimes even when I'm working and I feel like I'm just starting to feel very anxious, I'll sometimes light a candle, which is great because I'm working from home. I'll sometimes light a candle, which helps me in that moment because my mind associates said things with peace. It really helps me with that whole creating my peaceful environment. But obviously everyone is different, and maybe you need to find what works for you, what creates that symbol, whether it's watching anime or listening to soothing music or whatever it is for you. I think you need to find that and then utilize that. The fourth thing would be, for me, journaling. This is something that I think I've always done in tidbits, but now I do it more intentionally. I find that when I'm crippled by anxiety, it's sometimes hard to locate where it's coming from. When I then take pen to paper, whatever I'm writing about is probably the source of the anxiety or what I want to get off my chest. And sometimes also feel that when you have thoughts in your head running around, they're moving at a pace that's so fast so that you can't locate to understand them, or at least this is for me. But I find that when I write it down, I have to articulate exactly what the issue is, how it's making me feel, possibly come up with solutions for it, because I'm saying it out loud. Journaling then helps me to articulate it and write it down, and therefore it has to make sense, because you can't write down something that doesn't make sense, otherwise you'd see it yourself. But yeah, so journaling's definitely helped. It also helps expel those feelings, so that you can observe them and be like, I don't need to be crippled by this, and recognize that it's just a feeling that is heightened but really doesn't need to be so crazy, because you get anxiety from the weirdest, smallest things. I've also found that anxiety finds the most creative ways to like come into your brain. You could be doing the most simplest thing and it's like trigger, so you're like, I wasn't even there mentally, dude. Anyways, next up is being selfish. A little bit of a controversial one, but I think that you need to show up for yourself as well, especially when you need it most. And that for me was learning to say no to doing certain things, focusing on what does make me happy and what doesn't. And if it's something that doesn't make me happy, there's no need for me to then show up to do that thing when I know it's just going to make me unhappy afterwards. So going into spaces or environments that you know will be good for you, and that if you don't like it, you don't do it just to make someone else happy. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is you have to show up for yourself, and sometimes that does mean at the expense of other people, and by that I don't mean you're harming other people. It just means that you're putting yourself first. But don't be like an unkind or uncaring person or someone who doesn't consider other people. No, that's not what I'm saying. Please, can that not be misconstrued? But I'm just saying that you need to show up for yourself as much as you show up for other people. And I think that that's coming from me as someone who's a little bit more of an empath and who also is always trying to make the people around me happy. I've learned that I can't always make other people happy, especially if I'm making other people happy at the expense of my own happiness. That's just not okay. So show up for yourself and also make yourself happy as much as you make the people around, or at least as much as you try to make the people around you happy. So those are just 5 other things that I currently do to help me with my anxiety. Obviously, this is an ever-evolving list and it's going to grow, and it has grown, and some things will be plunked out and some things will be replaced depending on the journey that I'm on. But those are 5 things that help me, and even if just one of them helps you, that would be really cool. But with that being said, I think it's also important to remember that whatever you've decided is a coping mechanism for you, I hope that it's not a harmful one or an unhealthy coping mechanism. There's obviously a lot of things that create dopamine, that get rid of anxiety, and it's easy to get addicted to certain things that create this dopamine because you're just looking for some sort of like inkling of happiness or peace or just no anxiety. So it's good to note that while some things give us dopamine, that doesn't necessarily mean they're good for us, and they could harm us in other ways. So it's really important to try find things, and I'm always an advocate for doing whatever you want. I'm obviously not at the expense of other people, but like if something makes you happy, you should participate. But whatever is creating that dopamine for you shouldn't be harmful to your body or your mind or your spirit or your growth. And I'm not going to list anything specific because each person has their own views on what's harmful, and I'm not going to impose my beliefs on you about what could be harmful and what isn't, because ultimately each person is different and led by different things. but I think that we all know what would be harmful for ourselves, and so it's just that is something to consider. That's just like a little disclaimer that whatever you've decided is as a coping mechanism shouldn't be harmful to you or those around you. So yes, as I've said, I'm in no way a psychologist. I'm just hoping that whatever little tidbits I have around how I cope with my anxiety can help you, someone out there on the internet.